So, as Andrew told you off the top of the show, Donald Trump is trailing in the polls and in a big way. And as we've all seen here, forget about week after week, day after day, seemingly, he keeps shooting himself in the foot with gaffes, insults, you name it. He's even talked about what would happen if he loses the election. You never hear that in a general election, certainly less than 3 months from the big day. So it sounds like his mind might be maybe on something other than winning. Just play along with me here. Last segment, we mentioned that Trump was added former Fox News chief Roger Ailes and the former head of Breitbart Media, Steve Bannon, to his campaign, both experts when it comes to conservative media. It's also prompted questions about whether the media might be his actual end goal. Could Trump be interested in using his campaign to launch a new media venture? Is he really campaigning to launch Trump TV? And if you get into the innards of this business, there are some media properties right now who have decent distributions that this could naturally play into. We've also mentioned some of the other folks that have been involved in the advising, from the Hannitys and the rest. You could, Andrew, make the argument that this would be a more natural platform where this is reality TV, which he knows well, but that could play out, and he could wield influence without having to do the dirty work and have to play the game here. If you're only going to be a spoiler, if you will, rather than, or play kingmaker, I should say here, rather than having to do the actual kissing of the ring, that seems to fit the demo better. And also, he's always been more interested in the buck than the vote.
Yeah, and it's also not like he's unfamiliar with being on TV or capturing people's attentions, and I think he enjoys the spotlight. My only question to this theory is this seems like a really long way to go around it. You know, that
I didn't say that maybe this was the idea a year ago when he came down the escalator, which some of us know. But I'm saying maybe this is a little different, which is this has evolved to this point. He realizes he got to play ball with the party bosses and all the rest. He hates that stuff.
Yeah. Look, I think there's some legitimacy to that possibility. I wonder, though, and I'm sure this is on his mind too, if he loses by 300 electoral votes, if that's going to impact the cachet that he would have or that he would be able to bring into a conservative media.
Yes.
Can I add why? Can I say why? It's like, his mantra is going to be, either it's rigged or what have you, but also is, look, I brought my style to this. I brought myself and what I believe into it, and what a lot of people join me in similar beliefs. And if that doesn't win, that doesn't win. Doesn't mean that that's not tens of millions of people. Doesn't mean that that's not a whole host of individuals walking around this country that really, really like him. So he's not going to just let that go. Okay, so that could turn into some kind of media asset as a possibility, other kind of assets, but also maybe a political party, the Trump party. I mean, he raised a lot of money. He's capable of raising even more money. And instead of him having to go kiss the ring, people will start to have to kiss his ring. Maybe a Republican cannot win in the future if the Trump party doesn't endorse that person.
That's interesting. And I will say, Dominic, you look at how the media landscape's played out. Remember when Glenn Beck was, he drove people crazy, but he certainly at some point was even the biggest ratings draw that was over at Fox. He started The Blaze to very modest success. Rush Limbaugh, with the, what was it, the MIB, whatever the, not MIB, Men in Black, but there was some, EIB, thank you, Excellence in Broadcasting, I remember that. He's struggling right now with the radio stations not picking him up. It sounds good on paper, but to actually have a network's harder. It does seem it's a more natural fit for him, though, right?
Absolutely not. So you're telling me, Richard, you folks are telling me the premise is that Donald Trump, with all of his credibility from The Apprentice, is going to go through
just
all
think about
of
what you just said.
Yeah,
credibility
no,
from
okay.
The Apprentice.
Well, you're right.
Yes.
I meant in terms of a media personality. He was at the top of his game in terms of ratings. Okay. And he's going to run for president just to do what others have done.
I maintain that if nothing else, he's a very sore loser, and he does not do well to failure. He needs a face-saving exit from this. So he'll say it's rigged already and whatever else. I'm telling you, if you look at he'll tell you, Andrew will say how the casino properties have done. They've not done well in the last thing. I can tell you he won't get a job back on NBC when this thing's over. And he cares about that stuff.
But I think he would be bored with a television network.
I think that he's a
reason?
narcissistic egomaniac who needs to have a place to be seen.
I will say one thing that makes sense about this to me, and I agree with you. I don't think this was the thing he was thinking of doing when he started to run. But I do think his disgust and distaste with the Republican Party and what he sees as the media, the mainstream media that he has found so distressing. I could see him now saying, you know, taking a Steve Bannon and maybe even a Roger Ailes, although he's a little bit more mainstream, and some of these other folks, and saying, look, we need a counter to what has become a Fox News, which they see as mainstream, and what has obviously become the, you know, left-wing media that he sees as running and having a huge negative impact. So I believe he believes that, whether that's going to turn into, you know, him owning or running a media outlet, but I could seriously see him investing in one, or investing his time and his energy and his talent in somebody
to help you
combat
in the
the mainstream
structuring of this
media.
organization. I mean, whatever you think of the person, I have my certain opinions. The architect of what he was able to do, and also corral the conservative media talking points that really came out of Fox here. And right now, from all reports, it's a bit in disarray. Before I was at time, did you guys hear what Rudy Giuliani, do we have that clip here? Rudy Giuliani, obviously he has been a vocal supporter of Donald Trump, and as we've seen, as we've noted, he seems to be searching for relevancy, at least in my eyes, given his decline in the personal political stock. I want, though, you to take a look at what he had to say about Hillary Clinton more recently, and there certainly is some legitimate claims about her, but listen to what he had to say about her health.
Fails to point out several signs of illness by her. So go online and put down Hillary Clinton illness. Take a look at the videos for yourself.
Okay, Dom, they went through this, okay? Forget about the liberal media, whatever, the Wall Street Journal, all of this. What he claimed was a syringe was actually a flashlight, okay? What they claimed was her just laughing, and it looked like she was having a seizure. Mm-hmm. This is America's mayor, okay? This was the guy after 9/11. We know what September 10th.
I've never said
but
he was
we know where his
America's mayor.
stock was
He was
after
the man
September
that
11th.
told you he was America's
but
mayor.
after September 11th, he had rehabbed an image that had it was a beaten come
Yes.
September 10th.
Yes.
I didn't, you covered him more than anybody in this room, that he would go to that level.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised, and I don't think you're going to see more questions come out about her health. I think that they're ridiculous. There's no evidence to back it up. I'm going to say perhaps what no one else will say at this table, knowing Rudy Giuliani very, very well. Rudy, you had a great run. You became U.S. attorney. You made it as mayor. Man, it's time to retire. It's time to take Judith, go down to Florida, whatever you do, you know, and go do what you do. But it's time to leave the stage alone. See, many of us, notice I said us because the media is the same way, it becomes almost like an addiction, the love of the camera, the love of the attention. And Rudy will say almost anything to stay relevant and stay on television every week. It's time to go, Rudy.
And could we say it is the height of irresponsibility to suggest
Yes,
that people
thank you.
go and Google, because everything you Google is going to be true. That is absolutely irresponsible.
But what he's saying is on the fringe of fair discussion of politics. When you have a president who may not be, and I'm not suggesting that I support this theory, but if there is reason to believe, to ask the question, okay? You have reason to believe that she might be ill, or there may be an illness, or she may not be physically fit enough to be president. I think it's fair game to discuss.
If you want to ask if someone's too old to be president, okay? Maybe people will accuse you of ageism, but there's facts on the table which is you know the person's age. But the two things that he was referencing was a still shot, which if you go online and Google it, they claim she was having a seizure, or some tabloid. When they go to the event, she was laughing. Maybe she's got a weird laugh, but she was laughing. The second thing is their Secret Service carrying a syringe. You call the Secret Service? They claimed, they said, no, it was a flashlight that someone's bringing up.
He's
My
not
point
the
is,
only one who's
height of
called it into question.
Well, look about
He's
the
not
other
the only
people who
one.
were, though.
I can just tell you that there are pictures, there are things, she falls down, things like that.
It's totally irresponsible, Brad, is my point here.
I don't believe it's irresponsible. That I don't believe. I believe it's, I think it's a fair comment.
All right, coming up next. Now, this
Little
part
dirty,
is
but
legitimate,
fair.
okay? As to whether or not people keep on digging, like the guy you see in front of you, Olympic swimmer, who can't keep his story straight, or how about the presidential candidate who can't stop answering or changing stories when it comes to her emails? Sometimes public apologies make things worse. I got two examples we'll talk about straight ahead that do just that.